You've spent your whole life building someone, a version of yourself shaped by fear, by survival, by compromise. You didn't choose that man. He was forged by pressure, failure, disappointment, shame. He walks like you, talks like you, but he's not who you were meant to be. He's the version of you that learned how to cope, not how to conquer. And now, he's the reason you feel stuck, tired, uninspired. Because that man is the cage. You want to rebuild yourself? Then start here. Kill who you were. Stop negotiating with the past. Stop protecting your story. That version of you is the reason you keep relapsing into weakness. He apologizes when he should act. He hesitates when he should strike. He listens to doubt and calls it logic. You can't evolve while clinging to that identity. You have to tear it down, brick by brick, until there's nothing left to return to. This won't be a transformation. It'll be a demolition. Controlled, intentional, violent. You don't fix a foundation built on fear. You burn it. Because the man you were is the one who let pain win, the one who chased approval, avoided discomfort, and built a life that looked solid, but was hollow inside. If you're serious about changing your life, stop looking for upgrades. You need to start over, destroy the patterns, detach from the story, dismantle the weak identity that became your prison. Subscribe now, turn on notifications, because this won't be easy. It'll be war, and every war begins with destruction. The first thing you need to kill is self-pity. That voice in your head that says, "Why me?" That temptation to justify your failure, to romanticize your pain, to sit in your story and call it healing. That's not healing, that's decay. And the longer you stay there, the deeper the rot goes. Self-pity is seductive. It makes you feel seen, validated, forgiven. But it also keeps you exactly where you are. Broken, passive, weak. You weren't born to stay broken. You were born to rebuild. But rebuilding doesn't begin with vision boards or feel-good routines. It begins with confrontation. Ruthless, cold, internal war. You sit with your excuses, and you kill them. You stare at your triggers, and you stop letting them define you. You look at your life, the mess, the guilt, the collapse, and you stop narrating it like a victim. You start moving like a soldier. There is no space for self-pity in the mind of a man who's serious about rising. There is only space for decision. The decision to rise from wreckage. The decision to rebuild, not softer, not safer, but harder, colder, sharper. And you make that decision daily, without applause, without permission. The man who rebuilds himself doesn't look for comfort. He looks for control, internal control, emotional control, strategic control. And that starts the moment he stops crying for rescue and becomes his own executioner. Not of his dreams, but of his weakness. You don't get to become powerful and stay the same. One has to die. And if you want to live like a weapon, then let that weaker version die today. If you want to rebuild yourself, forget how you feel. Forget what you want. Rebuilding isn't about alignment or passion or energy. It's about discipline, savage, mechanical, repetitive discipline. The kind that doesn't ask for feedback, the kind that doesn't wait for motivation, the kind that functions in the dark, alone, while everything else falls apart. Discipline is the language of rebirth, not because it feels good, but because it works. It gives structure to chaos. It gives shape to identity. It gives you something to grip when the rest of your life is in ruins. You don't need clarity. You need a routine. You don't need purpose. You need execution. And if you do it long enough, purpose will show up, but not before. The man you used to be had habits that kept him soft, that made him reactive, emotional, addicted to approval and comfort. That man is dead now, or he should be. And if he's not, you kill him every time you keep your word. Every time you train when you're tired. Every time you focus when you're angry. Every time you choose silence over complaint. That's discipline. That's identity control. This is the new language, the new code. You rise at the same time. You train at the same time. You move when it hurts. You stay when it's uncomfortable. Not because it makes you feel powerful, but because it forges a man who no longer needs to feel anything at all to do what must be done. Discipline is not a strategy. It's your religion now. And every time you obey it, you bury your weakness deeper in the ground. Most people build from inspiration. You'll build from pain. You'll build from the ruins of what broke you. Not to prove anything, not to get noticed, but because staying the same is now more terrifying than destroying everything. Rebuilding yourself isn't romantic. It's not a comeback story. It's an execution plan, strategic, cold, ruthless, and it begins with a vision, not of who you want to be, but of who you'll refuse to be ever again. That vision has to be brutal, clear, merciless. You can't rebuild with vague dreams and soft goals. You need a blueprint so sharp it cuts through doubt. What time you wake up, what you eat, how you speak, what you consume, what you tolerate. Everything must be filtered through that vision. If it feeds the weak version, kill it. If it empowers the new version, multiply it. You don't just imagine your new self. You install him daily, brick by brick, action by action. You turn every routine into a declaration. I'm not going back. Not to mediocrity, not to excuses, not to the identity that begged for attention and choked on fear. That man is done. And this new man, he doesn't need comfort. He doesn't crave validation. He wakes up with a war plan and dies on his own terms. When the vision is brutal enough, every sacrifice makes sense. Every boundary becomes sacred. Every action becomes a weapon. And the more you move from that place, the less the past can pull you back. Because men don't rebuild to feel better. They rebuild to never be weak again. The world expects a show. They want to see you fall and then cry when you rise. They want drama, apologies, redemption arcs. But rebuilding yourself isn't theater, it's war. And war happens in silence. You don't post about your pain. You don't announce your discipline. You move like a ghost. Because when you rebuild properly, no one sees it coming. They wake up one day and realize you're no longer who they remember. You don't need approval to evolve. You need isolation. You need distance from the noise, the opinions, the stories you used to tell yourself just to survive. Rebuilding isn't about being seen. It's about becoming so sharp, so focused, so clear, that even if no one ever sees you again, you know you've become a weapon. One that no longer begs for anything. One that no longer leaks energy explaining itself. One that does the work, quietly, consistently, ruthlessly. This silence becomes your sanctuary, your forge, your strategy. You train with no cameras. You execute with no witness. And that's what makes you unstoppable. Because they only measure what they can see. And what they can't see, they can't predict or stop. Let the world underestimate you. Let them think you're done. While they scroll, complain, and distract, you evolve, in the dark, in the cold, without applause, because men who rebuild in silence don't need validation. They only need results. And when the world finally notices, it's too late. You've already become something they can't break. There are only two paths now. Rebuild yourself, or rot in the version of you that let everything fall apart. That version of you didn't fail because he was evil. He failed because he was weak. He avoided the truth. He waited to be rescued. He adjusted to pain instead of confronting it. And for a while, that worked. But survival isn't living. And deep down, you knew it. You could feel the rot, the shame, the slow death of knowing you were made for more, but too soft to become it. but not anymore. That man is dead. And this version of you? He's not built to survive. He's built to dominate, to move with precision, to rebuild a mind, a body, a soul that does not break. Not because it's invincible, but because it refuses to go backwards. Rebuilding isn't about fixing your life. It's about destroying the one that betrayed you, the one filled with compromise, distraction, and emotional weakness. It's about burning the bridges to comfort and living on the edge of clarity, discomfort, and power. The world won't hand it to you. There's no applause for reinvention, no reward for silence, but that's exactly why you do it. Because when you rebuild alone, you owe no one. You answer to no one. You create a version of yourself that no longer fears collapse because he was born in it. You become a man who walked through fire not to impress, but to erase the man who feared flames. So now what? You've been broken. Good. Now you know what's real. You've been lost. Good. Now you don't need a map. You've been alone. Good. Now you trust yourself. You've hit the bottom. Good. Now build. With rage. With silence. With strategy. Subscribe now. Drop a comment below. Tell me, what part of you needs to die for the real you to rise? Because you don't need to be reborn. You need to be rebuilt. And the man you're becoming won't recognize the man you used to be.